Okay, recording has begun. We can start.
This is where I jump in. I forget how to do this in person. This is really
Want to call the
fun.
meeting to order?
This is very fun. Okay, first item on our agenda is calling the meeting to order. We do have all of our RAB members, board members present here. Gordon is here as well. And so then the next item is approval of the September meeting minutes, because we haven't had a meeting since September. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes? Are there any questions or modifications?
I had one suggested, very minor edit. You're looking at that file. Page 2, under the RAB board discussion, on the third item. It says question if the board of reservoir are currently sourced water in the treatment process. I think that should just be source water.
Change that.
Sound right? Any other changes? We have a motion.
I'll move that we accept the minutes.
Motion by Steve,
Second.
Gordon, all in favor. I forget if I abstained since I wasn't there.
Did you have the same vote?
I think the board members who were there.
Oh.
Vote, yeah.
Correct. Yeah. Great. Is public comment. We have folks online who are interested in providing comment to the board.
Possibly, but let me read the Zoom guidance and then I will explain how folks indicate that they are ready for public comment, if that works for you.
Thanks, Joanna.
All right, you're welcome. Hi, my name is Joanna Bloom and I'm serving as the technical host for this meeting. We'll start with sharing a few slides of the virtual meeting rules that we follow. These rules are in place to find a balance between transparency with the community members and security that minimizes disruptions. We do need a full name associated with each person's participation in public comment, and we cannot unmute you without it. If your full name is not currently displayed, please change it or send it to me in the Q&A box, and I'm happy to change it for you. There is no chat feature for this meeting, but the Q&A function is enabled so you can use it to address any technical issues. If you have any difficulty using that Q&A box, you're welcome to text me at 303-817-1742. Members of the public may be unable to control their audio and video features. Video is limited to city officials, employees, and invited speakers only. I will unmute when you're recognized to speak. If you're on the phone, you may need to press *6 to unmute yourself, and you can indicate your desire to participate in public comment by using the raise hand function. That should be found either at the top or bottom of your screen. If you've joined us by phone, you can press *9 to raise your hand. And I'll call your name when it's your turn to speak and announce the name of the next speaker on deck. After I've unmuted you, please say your first and last name, and a 3-minute timer will be displayed and we'll start once you begin your comments. Thanks for participating. And I will go ahead and look at the list. Again, if you want to speak at public comment, you need to use the raise hand function, or you can send a Q&A if you're having trouble using it. I'll give it just 1 second. Okay, I do not see anybody wishing to speak this evening.
I just saw one attendee raise their hand, Joanna.
Oh,
Just
right on the one. Okay,
Lynn Siegel.
I will go ahead. Karen, do you have a timer?
I do have a timer. I will get that screen shared. I can find it here. Can I have that?
Great. And Lynn, you should be able to speak now.
Yeah, I've just got a big 3-minute timer facing me, which is really unpleasant. I'd rather that were just in one of the video windows. But I guess I don't have any say. I wanted to find out about what's going on with 22nd and Pearl at the planning board, where it was entertained for 45 units. And someone spoke about having had multiple interactions with utilities regarding sewage backups in that area, and that major infrastructure needed to be replaced somehow in that area as an argument for this project not to go forth. And I know with all of the other development, I know that at Folsom and Spruce, there's a project going in that Papilios that was 63 units originally. They spent a year and a half trying to get for sale units, which they never succeeded in doing, and increased density. And now it's 165 units, from 63 to 165. And taking over all the service uses in that same area. So that drives the need for the services that were lost and the service industry jobs that can't afford to live here, and the drive for increased density and the demand for more water services, be it sewer or just water, demand for CU South, etc. So I just wonder where RAB is on who's going to pay for all of this, with the inflation from the Nord Stream 2 being blown up by the United States, and now our gas prices elevated along with the inflation from the pandemic. It doesn't provide a whole lot of leeway for communities to survive, especially when there's a greater and greater wealth divide. There's probably hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars damage from the homeless meth users in the libraries, the bus station. And now I can't use the bathroom at the library. So who's paying for all of this? Besides the library district, which I voted against because I don't think we needed to sell off our library, and it lowers our bond rating. Bye.
Thanks, Lynn. I think that is the only person that's indicated that they wanted to speak.
All right. Thank you. Thanks, Lynn. Thank you, Joanna. Next item is an informational item, the year in review.
All right, well, thank you, Tricia. Good evening, everyone. I'm Joe Tadeucci. I'm the Director of Utilities. And here we are after how many years back in person? Have to dust off our in-person skills and relearn how to do that. But yeah, the first item on the agenda tonight is an information item. It's a 2022 year in review. This particular information item is one that has a lot of value for us as staff to put together. We used to do an annual report every year, and it was like this thick, and we would find some years that we would just run out of steam to get it completed. And so the prior director landed on the approach of doing an information item to RAB. So it's nice for us to put together and kind of document everything, that all the highlights from the past year, and then for us to be able to share it with the board. And it's also a good opportunity for newer staff to participate in a board item and also to learn about our department. So tonight we have Isabel Lertier, and she is a project manager in our water resources group. does a lot of our water rights accounting. And so she'll be leading the presentation tonight, and then we have various staff here from other areas of the department. This. What happened? As no.
Chris Douglas, that might be you. Are you muted?
I am muted.
Timeout, technical timeout.
I think I got it. Try it again.
Testing. Yeah, that, I just can't talk when that happens. Anyway, this item is actually one of my favorite ones of the year, and I always look forward, the whole staff team from across the department put this written item together and work together. And then when it gets to me for review, it's always a nice read, and I'm always blown away by the amount that happens each year. So with that, I will turn it over to Isabel.
Thank you, Joe. Hi, my name is Isabel Laritier. I'm in the Water Resources Group. I have been here about 2.5 years, so I'm slowly coming back to in-person things as well. So Karen, I think, did you say that I'll be sharing?
Yes.
Okay.
Share your screen. And that will.
Okay.
Good.
Thank you.
All right. So thank you again for having me this evening. Before I start, I just wanted to thank all the staff members and utilities who contributed their time and information to putting this memo and the content of the presentation together. It was, they were super responsive when I went around to all the groups to get everybody's updates. So thanks to all the staff, and we appreciate the opportunity to share our work with you. Just an overview of what I'll run through. The presentation will cover revenue, operations and maintenance, project highlights from this past year, as well as a few upcoming projects going forward. So starting with revenue, in 2022, City Council approved rate increases with the primary focus on addressing aging infrastructure needs. All three funds, water, wastewater, and stormwater flood, received higher revenue than expected. And one interesting example of revenue detail, which we show in this graph, is that we saw an increased water use trend this year in the commercial, industrial, and institutional sector, or CII. During the pandemic, revenue from this sector was greatly impacted. And on the graph, you can see the drop after 2019, which is represented by the blue line. However, we've seen steady growth each year since then, which is a good indicator that business is picking back up since the beginning of the pandemic, with the highest recovery so far last year in 2022. So revenue provides the funding required for the operations and maintenance that utilities carries out every day. After a couple of years of operating through the challenges of the pandemic, last year we seemed to be getting back to more normal operations, focusing on core maintenance and rehabilitation activities essential to the health and safety of the community in each of the three groups within utilities. Water covers everything related to our source water, treatment, hydropower, and distribution. Wastewater is the collection and treatment of wastewater, and stormwater and flood management provides and maintains effective stormwater collection and flood management systems throughout the community. A quick overview of our water supply and demand from last year. On the supply side, here we can see in the graph that although the year started out relatively dry throughout the region, We had good snowpack through the winter and spring. And then we also had pretty regular summer monsoons during this throughout the summer. As a result, we ended the year around average for precipitation, and we were able to meet all demands without restrictions. In terms of demand last year was relatively average. And although here you can see spring irrigation demand ramped up more rapidly than usual, since we had a warm, dry spring. By the end of the year, the annual demand was very close to the 5-year average shown in this graph here. Last year's demand is shown in blue, and the gray line is the 5-year average. So if we look at annual demand trends over a longer period, going back about 30 years, water demand has decreased actually since the drought year of 2002, when we had implemented water use restrictions, and we have not since that time. Those restrictions seem to have encouraged behavioral changes that have continued forward. For example, irrigation habits or the use of more efficient household fixtures, et cetera. And interestingly, we also saw a similar trend in our wastewater flows. About 20 years ago, we averaged about 16 million gallons per day, whereas now the average is around 12 million gallons per day. So overall, our water use has decreased substantially in recent years. So I'll just cover a few of the highlights from this past year, projects for improving critical infrastructure throughout the system. So if we start at the top of the system, here are a couple projects that address source water storage and delivery. We completed the first year of the Albion Dam rehabilitation, a 3-year project which will improve the dam stability and storage volume of Albion Reservoir in the city's upper watershed. And the picture on the left, you can see some cracks and other deterioration in the concrete on the upstream side of the dam. I think that dam is probably on the order of 100 years old, so it's been around for quite a while. Because this reservoir is located above 10,000 feet, the construction season is limited to summer months, and although conditions can be challenging at this altitude, the first year of this project was quite successful. The Barker Gravity Pipeline delivers water from Barker Reservoir in Netherlands down to Bethesda Water Treatment Plant, as well as the Boulder Canyon Hydro Facility. We've reached the halfway point in the 12-year rehabilitation project. This project involves shutting down the pipeline in the winter when demands are low and lining the pipe to provide more structural integrity and reduce leakage. Using the lining technique in the existing pipe rather than doing open cuts to replace entire pipe sections reduces the environmental impact and disruptions. So for this project, about 90% of the project is done with lining, and only about 10% will use traditional open cut methods only where necessary. So for example, the siphons. This project will extend the useful life of the pipeline far into the future, and work is currently on track with plans to continue for another 6 years until completion. Further down in the system, the electrical and high service pump station project at the 63rd Street Water Treatment Plant out at Boulder Reservoir will improve the power supply and electrical components throughout the plant, as well as replace and upgrade the high service pump station. This important treatment plant project will allow for more flexibility in source selection and operations, improving system redundancy and the ability to meet future demands. It's currently on schedule in construction and should be complete in 2025. So after water is treated at either of the treatment plants, water gets distributed through the system for delivery to the end user, where it's metered so we know how much is being used. And collecting that data can be pretty time and labor intensive. So utilities maintenance has implemented a new software called Beacon AMA. for meter reads. The software makes the meter reading process much more efficient. For example, meter reads can be done by 4 employees simultaneously instead of just one at a time. And the number of days per month needed for this task has dropped from 17 down to soon just 4 days per month. So that allows staff more time to focus on other important projects that they might not have had time for otherwise. And this is just one of several improvements in the use of data across utilities maintenance. So several projects were completed to improve the collection and transmission of wastewater and stormwater. The wastewater collection system master plan previously identified a few high priority main sewer improvement projects, one of which was completed this year. The Baseline and Foothills trunk sewer replacement project involved installing a higher capacity pipeline to reduce the risk of backups during significant rain events, such as the 2013 flood. This important project, valued at about $5 million, is part of several major sewer improvement projects. And a second similar but much larger project identified in the master plan is slated for next year at Valmont and Butte Mill Roads and extends out to the Water Resource Recovery Facility, or the WRF, at 75th Street. And this one next year involves rehabilitating the old pipe with lining shown in the blue line in that figure on the right, and installing new pipe to increase total capacity, which is the red line. Once completed, these projects will provide a more resilient collection system during significant wet weather events. The sanitary sewer rehabilitation project lined over 12 miles of sanitary pipes this year to improve the structural integrity of those pipes. Since they began in 2015, over 90 miles of pipe have been lined, and work will continue in the coming years to complete lining the system. The storm sewer rehabilitation project began the first of 7 years of cleaning and inspection throughout the system. And over 12 miles were completed this year, and several projects were identified for future improvements as well. The Bear Canyon Creek flood mitigation project at Ithaca and Wildwood in South Boulder included numerous improvements, such as replacing outdated infrastructure, stormwater inlet pipe and outfall improvements, and 2 grouted rip drop structures. Project improvements lowered the floodplain elevations by over 1 foot in this neighborhood near an elementary school to minimize future flooding. And this was just one of several stormwater and flood mitigation projects completed. In terms of a couple plan updates, City Council approved the comprehensive flood and stormwater master plan. This plan is the guiding document for the stormwater and flood management utility and includes numerous additional projects and improvements to be addressed in future years. Upcoming projects will be evaluated using the project prioritization framework from this plan, which shifts emphasis from the cost-benefit ratio to other important considerations, such as equity in the community. Utilities also completed the drought plan update, which I think you guys are intimately familiar with at this point, and worked through formal adoption steps with RAB, city manager, and city council for the plan and related regulatory changes. A few regulatory updates. The state is in the process of looking at several regulatory updates that would affect utilities, including lake and reservoir, water quality criteria, PFAS, and lead and copper. Staff is monitoring or participating in to varying degrees in these processes. And a few other specific examples are shown here: nutrient reductions, or Regulation 85. 2022 completed the 5th year of the CDPHE Voluntary Incentive Program for early nutrient reductions from our wastewater effluent. And so far, the annual nitrogen concentrations in our effluent have remained below target. The goal of the E. coli total maximum daily load, or TMDL, implementation plan is to identify, investigate, and mitigate point sources of E. coli in Boulder Creek. Work completed in this program will help inform future water quality permit sampling requirements. Staff also updated city code related to the industrial pretreatment program in line with industry best practices and US EPA guidelines. Changes include electronic compliance reporting, which saves staff time and also improves accuracy. And improve point source mitigation requirements through the fats, oils, and grease program, which improves the performance of our sanitary collection and treatment systems. So quite a few projects from last year will continue forward, ongoing into future years. And here are just a few highlights that you'll hear more about going forward. The water efficiency plan update, we'll be updating that this year in 2023, which will provide guidance for the city's water conservation program. And we'll actually be discussing more on this plan update a little bit later this evening. Phosphorus upgrades at the WRF involve upgrades to various components and processes to reduce the concentration of phosphorus discharged to Boulder Creek in anticipation of lower standards. Construction of these upgrades will begin this year in 2023 and are expected to be completed in 2025. Some of the public spaces managed by utilities continue to experience unsanctioned camping. The strategies and the team in partnership with Parks and Recreation and the City Police were originally developed in 2021 to address this issue. Late last year, council approved the addition of more team members, increasing it from 5 to 9 to expand their work. And a new public-facing data dashboard on the city's website, the Safe Management of Public Spaces, or SAMPS, shows the status of reported sites and helps the city prioritize cleanup activities. You can search for unsanctioned camping on the city's website to access the data dashboard. A couple of flood mitigation projects for this year include the South Boulder Creek and the Upper Goose and 2 Mile Canyon Creek projects. This year, the South Boulder Creek Flood Mitigation Project will continue with design work as well as work on environmental and floodplain permitting and stakeholder agreements. And the map on the right shows the Upper Goose Creek and 2 Mile Canyon Creek Flood Mitigation Project area in North Boulder, where we are now. The shaded portion represents areas that have flooded in the past during high precipitation events. And this mitigation plan is intended to increase stormwater resiliency, reduce potential damages due to flooding, and improve the condition of the stormwater corridors while working closely with the community throughout the process. And there's actually a public meeting, I think Wednesday this week at Columbine Elementary School. This project will also address drainage and flood impacts in coordination with the Alpine Balsam site, the former hospital site here. Staff have been working with consultants on alternatives, and final recommendations will be brought to RAB and City Council later this year. So that concludes all the many things that we were up to this past year, and a couple highlights from that you'll see going forward as well. Thanks again for your time. Appreciate it, and we'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Isabel. That was great. Really good overview. Questions from the board, comments?
I do have a few questions, but as an overall comment, I share Joe's enthusiasm about this year in review report. I've seen a number of them, and more than I've seen directly, of course, are available for the public to review. And it just represents an incredible amount of work that's been done by utility staff in all 3 areas. And I really think it's to your credit to put together such a streamlined yet comprehensive document. So kudos to all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you. There's a lot of information.
And if I might just comment on that while you're thinking about questions. For me, just seeing the photos up here and some of these major projects like Albion Dam and the Barker Gravity Line, the Baseline and Foothills project. Just everything that's being done. And then a couple of plans, the drought plan and the CFS. There's a big RAB component to those as well. And so your work is kind of embodied in this, and the actions that you take throughout the year to make recommendations to council on those plans and the budget are really meaningful. And as I've said in the past, of course, all the boards are respected, but RAB very much so, and carries a lot of weight. So we appreciate that.
I have one question that you didn't touch on in your summary, but was in the report. Maybe this is better for Kim, but you mentioned the leasing of water rights to agricultural users, and I'm just curious, what's been the trend in that over the years, and what's the revenue? Is there any significant revenue impact of those leases to the department?
Yeah, I can respond to that. So the leasing, we tend to have more requests for water than we're able to meet, and the volume of water that we lease out kind of is a function of what our surplus is. So it's ranged, I would say it's ranged over the years from say 2,000 to about 7,000 acre feet per year of water that we lease out. And a big component of that is the CBT water. So if Northern has a higher quota or allotment that year, generally we're able to lease out more of that water that we lease out is because of that higher allotment. As far as revenues go, I think when you look at a total utility revenue, I don't think it's significant. I'm not sure, Joe, if you have.
Yeah, it's not a significant component of revenue, and just our community values. We've kept our leasing rates pretty competitive. We basically charge people what it costs us to get the water from Northern with a small markup on it, and supporting local agriculture is definitely behind that, but it's not a huge revenue component.
What is the rough number what was sort of the going rate for leasing an acre foot?
So last year we leased CBT water for $45 per acre foot.
Kim, for the record, can you introduce yourself and your?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, my name is Kim Hutton. I'm the water resources manager.
We did an information item to the board maybe back in 2018, where we summarized our leasing program. Be happy to forward that to the board if that would be helpful, or to you, Steve.
Just curious because the leasing rate for 1 year is like a tiny fraction of what the water rights are trading for.
Yeah.
And that number like $15,000 or $20,000 now, higher.
Most recently 90,000.
This is about 90 to 100.
Other comments and questions?
I had a few questions about the information packet, and some of them were in presentation slides. So if you don't mind me asking a few of those. Isabel, by the way, before I start, excellent presentation. So thank you. If you go back to your first slide that talked about the cumulative billed water consumption with 2019 to 2000. So the solid blue bars, the taller bars per month are 2019. I was just curious, why was that year the revenue so much higher? Of course, the usage was probably higher, but why, what was going on in 2019 that caused that? Was it because of a drought or new facilities coming online, or do you have any ideas?
I can take that and the team can correct me if I get it wrong, but I think that was prior, this is commercial customers, and so this was prior to the pandemic, 2019 was. And I think the usage just dropped off during the pandemic, and now it's starting to return. I think less business use, probably people going out of business and that kind of thing.
So potentially if earlier years before 2019 were on here, they might have shown a more consistent trend with 2019.
Yeah,
potentially.
I would guess that would be the case. And I imagine some of that, there could be people working from home from other places than Boulder, rather than being in person at some of those facilities.
That makes sense. In the memo, there was a brief section on field services, so utility locates and metering. And the statement in the year in review report says that there were more than 18,000 underground utility locates done in 2022. That's about 50 a day. Is that right?
Yeah, and Joanna Bloom kind of oversees that, and she might be able to add some additional information to that. But the city has this fiber backbone project that's been going on for several years, and it generates a lot of utility locates. And temporarily, the IT department actually funded an additional locator for our utilities team just to be able to keep up with that. And Chris, you're in the loop in working with that team and overseeing it. So if you were Joanna, have anything to add to that?
Yeah, Chris DeVille, Deputy Director of Operations. Joe, you're absolutely correct. I think that number is pretty striking, Gordon. So you're wise to make that comment. Yeah, this fiber project, once we get done, there's lots of great things on the horizon, but the impact has been significant. The crews have been completely at capacity for a long time. So the quick note I can add to what Joe shared is present day, they're about 75 to 80% done with this backbone framework of doing the actual boring and getting the conduits in. So they anticipate, fingers crossed, if things can remain near schedule, like an August end date for the remainder of the backbone and these rings that they're working on. So I think once this project reaches a completion point, those numbers will probably drop some.
Thank you. Moving down to the wastewater side, the year-end report mentions in its opening paragraph about the wastewater treatment operations that the biogas system revenue remains on pace to pay back the capital investment in less than 5 years. And that statement struck me as just remarkable. It was such a wise planning and construction and operation to allow such a rapid payback time. It's just remarkable. And so I hope that that's one of a number of statements that utilities can just shout at the rooftops to council and the public and elsewhere. I think that's one of the gleaming stars of many wonderful accomplishments of 2022.
Yeah, for sure. And I remember Kim and I worked on the source water master plan back in 2009. We were in different roles, and hydroelectric is part of our system as well. And the board's input on that was, well, if a renewable energy project like that breaks even, and if it pays itself back in like 20 years, the city should pursue it. So you're right, for something to pay back in 5 years is.
If I could just chime in, it is really good news. You might recall, those who've been on the board for a while, we projected kind of an 8 to maybe 12-year payback based on what we knew about the revenue streams, the anticipated revenue streams. So the fact that we're tracking below 5 is beyond our expectations. Western Disposal has been a really good partner, right? That's who we sell the actual gas to, but it really is the renewable fuel standards and the EPA's RIN credits that are being traded. And
moving on in the year-end review report, to the water transmission system improvements section. It mentioned over 50 projects were evaluated and prioritized for most time sensitive, very time sensitive, and then opportunistic timing. And I wondered how that prioritization relates to the source water inventory and maintenance main project, which has a very different set of criteria, or the comprehensive storm and floodwater master plan, which again has a different prioritization. Is there a goal to try to mesh those systems in terms of evaluating priorities?
That's a good question. I think I get where you're coming from, and the water distribution and transmission system, I think, is really more of a just straight condition assessment. And we're talking about in this year's CIP, whether we would bring some of the principles like we had in the flood master plan around racial equity into our prioritization. But it's a little more straightforward, that one, than the big flood utility that is, they're largely still undeveloped in terms of projects. Like those other systems are already built, and we know where the problems are or where things are at the end of their useful life, where the flood utility, we're still developing drainages. So it's a little bit different, if that makes sense. Did I? Okay. Different, and we're going to bring some of those principles into our planning more and more as we go forward in the future.
Anything else? Just a question. I know you started off the summary of the year with some staffing discussion, and curious, sounds like there's been success in 2022 in bringing on new employees, but has there been a certain approach that you found to be most successful, or is there, recognizing that that's a major concern, an issue going forward? Are there some successful strategies that you're hoping to replicate in 2023?
Yeah, well, there's multiple levels to answering that question. And one of the big success stories in our Chris Douglas in our flood and stormwater utility, at one point in 2022, you all know Brandon Coleman, who leads the South Boulder Creek project. We were down to just him, and Chris, we were able to get Chris hired in the management of the whole engineering work group. And he really hit the ground running and rolled up his sleeves and helped Brandon hire. I think we're up to three additional.
It's a team of 4 right now.
Yep, a team of 4. And you'll hear from Chris a little bit later under matters for a preview of the Upper Goose Creek and 2 Mile flood project. And I'm seeing those staff members get up to speed quickly, and it's perfect timing because we have got the approval on the flood master plan last year. And those staff members, I think, are really starting to gel and will drive those projects. In utilities, a big thing for me is our hiring processes and who we're looking for and the character traits. And we talk a lot about that as a management team, and people, not everyone is cut out for public service and working in the public. And so I think we've been successful as a department of getting clear on some things that we're looking for, including thinking about equity. And then the organization at that level, we just went through a big classification and compensation program that for a number of reasons took several years to complete, but kind of got our compensation philosophy figured out and aligned, and a number of people received adjustments. And I think the organization at my level and above is still looking at what do we need to do to be competitive and really focus on employee retention as well. a lot of the projects and utilities and the things that we work on, it's honestly a number of years to proficiency. And so we really want to find people who will be a match for this type of work and hopefully keep them happy and develop them and want them to stay here.
All right, I think that might be it. Again, kudos to you, Isabel, for the presentation and the whole team on that. That was really great year in review. Thank you.
One photo that I might just speak to, and you don't have to go to it, but on the Barker gravity line, you saw a manhole and this like tube sock looking thing that was going into the manhole. That is a really cool operation that Kevin Clark in our source water team figured out. And so that is a liner that gets pulled in and I think pneumatically inflated, and then it gets cured with an ultraviolet light and becomes like a really strong fiberglass pipe that's really stout. And it's complicated to get it up on the hillside to do it, but it's maybe not, that's one that's not intuitive from the photo, what's going on there.
And staff came up with the approach?
Yeah, Kevin actually, I was in Kevin's role and then I moved to a different one. And I remember Kim and I were like 2005 to 2010, we were looking at technologies and they weren't there yet. And then Kevin came in and continued that research and found something that was able to work. It would be massive to have to dig up that whole 11 miles of pipe. It's
And that topography.
it's an undertaking getting that stuff up there to do this, but
There's snow on the rocks. I mean,
yeah. Anyway, that's one of the big projects that's just year to year happening. And the rates are contributing to rebuilding our system that way.
Okay, the next item is matters from the board. Members have anything to share?
I have one brief thing, and that is in this morning's Daily Camera was an article in the local section about City of Aurora's proposal to limit watering for lawns. So I'll show it up here on the, there you go, you can see the title. And I know we've talked about it in the past, but I'm curious if we'll hear a discussion at this meeting or in a near future meeting about the city's efforts to contemplate water conservation, particularly for, what's the term, non-functional grass? Because I think that's what Aurora's doing.
Yeah, for sure. So our April meeting every year is generally a big part of that is a water supply update. And we look at the conditions that inform our decisions of whether our situation warrants restrictions. And we just approved the drought plan last year with the board's help. And so we've got those tools to work with. And then what a great segue to what's coming next under matters from staff. Well, we're talking about our water efficiency plan update. And so there are all kinds of things in the works, I would say, with our planning and the way we're thinking about our water supply in the next few years, long term, that will inform some of those decisions. But there'll be some updates coming here in a matter of minutes and then a couple of months from now.
I would also like to very briefly note, as a slight aside, but something one of our fellow board members was involved with, and that is last fall, this book called Cornerstone of the Crossroads came out, which is a compendium of issues relating to Colorado River and the use of the river water, especially under drought conditions. And John Bergeron was lead author of one of the chapters. So I just wanted to say kudos to John and hope all of you out there listening and all of you here get a copy and read it. It's extremely informative.
Yeah, I think it's matters from staff.
All right, as promised, literally 120 seconds later. We have several updates that I mentioned to the board members before the meeting started. It's been a while since we've had a regular business meeting. We'll talk about the water efficiency plan tonight. We'll get a quick update from the water quality team on Eurasian milfoil. The Upper Goose Creek and 2 Mile flood mitigation plan, a few minutes on that. And a couple of items around wildfire resilience and Chautauqua sustainability that Chris DeVille will do. And then a couple of brief updates from me. They're all relatively quick. The first few involve a small amount of PowerPoint slides. So we'll start with the water efficiency plan. That is a plan that has a regulatory component. It's due to the state every 7 years, and we're at the point where it's due again. Robbie Glenn is a senior project manager in our water resources team, and he'll be presenting in a few minutes here, and he'll go over the scope and schedule. And you might recall at the retreat, which has now been a few months in the rearview mirror, but we talked about, similar to the comprehensive flood and stormwater master plan, where we had a board member that you all nominated to follow along with that plan and some of the public process, which we're still working out the details on exactly what that process is going to be. But after Robbie's report, we might look to you to see if you would have interest and want to nominate somebody to work with us on that plan. I think I said what I needed to say about that. So, Robbie.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. I'm going to share my screen. Let me know if you guys can see that. Okay. Cool. Can you guys all see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Hello, everyone. Good evening. My name is Robbie Glenn. I am a water resources engineer in the Water Resources Division. And tonight I'm going to give a quick update, just have a couple slides on the 2023 Water Efficiency Plan update. So just quick agenda for it. We're going to review the scope of this project, the schedule. And as Joe kind of alluded to, we do have interest to see if the RAB would like to participate, if there's a RAB member who'd like to participate outside the normal RAB meetings on this project. So to start, what is the Water Efficiency Plan? A little bit of history. Back in 2004, the state passed the Water Conservation Act. This required all retail water providers that sell more than 2,000 acre feet of water on an annual basis to have a state-approved water efficiency plan. And as part of that House bill as well, it needs to be updated every 7 years. So our existing plan is from 2016, so this is just a 7-year timeframe update. One thing to mention too, the governing entity for the water efficiency plan is the Colorado Water Conservation Board, or CWCB, if you're familiar with that organization. The purpose and the goal of the water efficiency plan really though is to provide updated guidance for implementing our water conservation program. And we look through a lens of, what is compatible with our city's water supply system, our adopted water conservation goals, and it does give us a chance to reevaluate our existing programs, as well as input from community values as well. And really what this document is it provides us an opportunity to evaluate the conservation program over the next 5 to 7 years. So quick schedule, we're right now in the initiation phase of the project, doing some background investigation. In just another month or two, we're going to start to kick off a couple of information efforts, one being a city staff workshop. And this will be internal to city representatives who are going to help us evaluate and prioritize certain projects or programs to see if we want to pursue them over the next 5 to 7 years. Second component to that will be a public engagement process. We're actually right now developing a questionnaire that is going to be sent out to the general public on Breeherd Boulder in April. And that's going to kind of review some questions that we have about the existing conservation programs and any improvements that we could make upon them. Another thing to comment on this as well, we are working with our community engagement staff on how we can incorporate the racial equity instruments into the water efficiency plan. Following these two efforts, we will sit down and reevaluate the information from the workshop and public engagement and begin writing the plan, develop some programs and projects that we'd like to pursue. We're tentatively planning to come back to RAB in later parts of the summer to kind of review what we've gone through in the process and run through the initial draft with RAB. And then following that, the CWCB actually requires a 60-day public review period. And so we will post this draft plan on Breeherd Boulder as well as the Water Conservation website for public review and feedback. And then it gives us a couple months to reevaluate what we have in the plan, incorporate any last minute comments that we have, and then submit to the Colorado Water Conservation Board. So yeah, those are kind of a couple updates. As we talked about before, we are really interested in having a RAB member participate in this process. And we do think it's going to be, 2 to 4 hours a month for the first part. So it's really on the initial data collection side of things before we begin compiling all the information to the report and eventually come back to RAB. So with that, I'll answer any questions that you guys have. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Robbie.
Robbie, one question real quick. This is Gordon. Thanks for that presentation. On your schedule slide, the two RAB engagement months were February and August. Was the intent of the February meeting to be what you just covered, or is something else envisioned for the February one?
Yes, this was the intent of the February was to kind of kick this project off. So yes, this was the February meeting.
Thanks.
And Robbie, when you're saying you want a board member to participate and it's about 2 to 4 hours, is it part of the public engagement part or meetings with staff, or kind of more specifically, what are you looking for from a board representative?
Yeah, absolutely. I think really what we're looking for is the public engagement component. So I mentioned earlier we are developing some questionnaire, and a lot of those questions are centered around our existing program, maybe some barriers to folks implementing or adopting best water conservation practices. And so I think a majority of that would be helping with that public engagement feedback. And then as well, kind of distilling the results and talking through potentially what we'd like to incorporate into the plan based on the results that we get.
If I can add to what Robbie said, some of you might remember with the flood master plan, we had a community working group that met many monthly, I think, or maybe even more than monthly at times for 2 years. We're not envisioning anything that comprehensive for this. So it probably would be sort of working with us and vetting what we have in mind for our public process. There could be a more limited stakeholder type of thing that we may or may not come up with. And then probably when we get to the point of drafting the plan, just having somebody that can work with us and bounce our ideas off as we're getting ready to finalize it.
Thanks for that.
Ted didn't know what he signed up for. I promise it's not that.
He knows a lot about flood master planning. Yes, he's an expert. Well, reality that I will be rotating off. I don't think I would be the right representative. I know we talked a bit, I think, John, I don't want to put you on the spot. We talked a bit maybe at the retreat. That would be up your alley. So curious what your thoughts are. Oh, cool.
Other folks want to, I'm open to that, but.
John's career, from what I understand, is this is one of his areas of emphasis, and he works in multi-state areas as a recognized expert. So I think he would be an incredible asset to the team. So I nominate Dr. Bergeron.
I'm excited that you're excited.
I would love to do this, yeah.
Great.
I'm excited. We're excited too.
And I don't know that you need to take formal action on it if you're all good with that, or if others are interested.
John's on point.
Yeah.
Let the
Well, I
record
guess, I mean,
reflect.
Thank you. I would love to do this. So the one thing I was going to say was just as throughout the year and the plan develops and through all the work that the city does, like there's so many innovative things happening in the water efficiency conservation space that cities are really starting to think outside the box, which I think is really cool. And I think this is a great opportunity for Boulder to be a leader in that sense. I was just on a call with Denver Water the other day, and they're implementing a new program with their lead line replacement program, where if they tear up any turf because they're replacing the lead lines, they'll replace that turf with water efficient landscape at no cost to the property owner. So things like that, and then the state just announced an urban water efficient landscape task force. I probably got that name wrong. But the state's thinking about this too. Like how do we transform our landscapes here in Colorado to be more water efficient? So this is just a great time to do this and really encourage city staff to think outside the box and think how you can continue to push the envelope on water efficiency. So
We're on the same page.
okay, great.
Yeah, it'll be great to have you work with us on that plan. And it's another thing that the board will get to see. For the first few years of my tenure as a director, it seemed like we had a lot of information items and not as much as in the past for the board to act on. But with the engineering team getting up to speed and some of these other things, I think it's going to be more active. That may be good or bad news for you. It's good news for me. More on that one?
I don't think so.
So I'm just going to keep rolling here and try to have these be pretty quick. The next item is an update from our water quality team on the Eurasian milfoil situation at Boulder Reservoir. We discovered that there. And if I'm remembering correctly, I think the team did a presentation similarly for the Parks and Recreation Board in December. And so wanted to keep Rab in the loop as well. Sometimes there are things that there really isn't a role for the board. It has to do with our operations, but because you're on the board, community members might ask you about a subject. So we try to think of those things and share the highlights with you. So Kate Dunlap is a senior. She's quality. She's also a water quality PM, and she will lead this one. Megan, I don't know if you wanted to say anything or straight to Kate.
I think straight to Kate is great.
Okay.
Great. Well, thank you. My name is Kate Dunlap. I'm in the drinking water program, and I'm just going to give just a very brief update on aquatic nuisance species, and in particular, the Eurasian water milfoil that was discovered at Boulder Reservoir this past fall. So just some brief background on aquatic nuisance species. They're essentially invasive, non-native plant or animal species, and once they're introduced to a water body, they're generally impossible to eradicate. And I've shown here 4 of the state's priority aquatic nuisance species of concern: the zebra mussel, quagga mussel, Eurasian water milfoil, and the New Zealand mud snail. And each of these species can have substantial operational, recreational, water quality and environmental impacts, but the degree to which those impacts is very different between the species. So I will say that of these 4, the zebra and quagga mussels are by far the most impactful and costly to deal with. Eurasian water milfoil and New Zealand mud snail they are prevalent in the state of Colorado, and they are in a number of water bodies within Boulder County and have been for the past 20 plus years. But that said, one of the primary ways we protect our waterways is through preventing their introduction in the first place. And so our Parks and Rec department has been implementing a robust public education program and watercraft inspection and decontamination program at Boulder Reservoir since 2009. Despite those efforts, as we now know, we do have Eurasian water milfoil unlikely that it came from watercraft, but I'll kind of get into that on the next slide. So as you know, Eurasian water milfoil was first detected in the fall, well, in August really, by the Colorado Parks and Wildlife. They do 2 annual spot checks on the reservoir just to look for aquatic nuisance species in particular. And in August, they found a floating fragment of Eurasian water milfoil down near the South Dam where this red star is located. So in October, we went back out with Colorado Parks and Wildlife when the reservoir was lower and we could see more. And we found that the plant is established in the reservoir, and primarily in these western coves is where it's rooted. There's still a lot of unknowns. We don't know how the plant got there or when it arrived. It can establish from just one floating fragment, and those fragments can be blown in the wind and survive in the water column for months until they reach sediment, and then they can just start a full population. So it could have arrived in Boulder Reservoir from connected waterways, wind, waterfowl that might have mistaken it for its native plant species food, watercraft, dogs, or anglers. At this point, we just don't know how it got there. So in terms of next steps, as soon as Colorado Parks and Wildlife discovered the floating fragment, the Parks and Rec Department immediately began watercraft exit inspections. This is meant to prevent the spread of this species outside of Boulder Reservoir. They also upped their public education program, posted signs throughout the reservoir, and increased their issuing of summons to prevent illegal watercraft launching that primarily is a risk on the North Shore. In the meantime, we've also been doing a lot of research and information gathering. As I mentioned, this plant is unfortunately throughout Colorado, throughout water bodies in Colorado. And so we've been talking with other municipalities in Colorado and in other states that are dealing with the plant and just learning about different management options and kind of what to expect. We are going to do another annual aquatic vegetation survey with Colorado Parks and Wildlife again next October. This will help us to assess whether there's been any changes in the location of the plant or plant density. Right now, while the plant is well established throughout, there were really only a couple of dense mats that we saw. So that's good, but we don't know if it's going to stay that way. We're also going to do a survey to look for weevil in the summer with the Colorado Department of Agriculture and the City of Westminster. The City of Westminster has been managing their milfoil with this weevil that they purchased 20 years ago. It's no longer commercially available, but it eats this plant and it's been an effective method for them. It's unclear whether or not it would work at Boulder Reservoir for a variety of reasons, but it's also possible that we already have this weevil. So we wanted to check to see if it's already in there. And finally, we will just continue to monitor the situation. But if we start to see Eurasian water milfoil growing in dense mats in strategic locations or growing near the drinking water intake area, we could use these benthic blankets, which are essentially large tarps that you place on the bottom of the lake, and you move them around every 6 weeks or so to prevent plant growth in those small areas. So those are some of the things that we have lined up in terms of next steps. But with that, I would be happy to take any questions that you might have.
Kate, I have a question. Thank you for that update. So I'm much more familiar with the quagga mussels and zebra mussels and the operational impacts that they can have when they're out of control. For the milfoil, what is the concern? Is it similar, like that they're gonna grow uncontrolled and proliferate and clog up like the drinking water intake, or is it more similar to like algae where they would grow and die off and have oxygen impacts, or what is the concern?
Yeah, good question. So they're nowhere near comparable to the quagga and zebra mussels, which are really catastrophic for waterways, which is good. That the milfoil is not that bad. Milfoil is more of a nuisance for water operations. So the plant, it grows top to bottom, or bottom to top, I guess, in the water column, and it outcompetes other native plant species. So it can have that aquatic life impacts as well. In public swim beaches, the plant growth can get to the point where it impacts swimming abilities. So Colorado Parks and Wildlife has milfoil in many of their water bodies, and they use targeted herbicide treatments every year to just spot treat it and manage it in those areas. At the end of the season, depending on the level of plant growth that you have in the reservoir, when the plants die off, then you can get those impacts where you have lower dissolved oxygen and more organic matter that can cause taste and odor issues in drinking water. Fortunately, we have the Carter Lake pipeline. So we do treat from Carter Lake directly year round and use Boulder Reservoir as a backup. But it is an important regional water supply, and we recognize that, and it's a recreational destination. So we want to do what we can to protect that water body.
Thanks.
Yeah, the park staff has an equal interest and stake in the recreation component
Yep.
of the reservoir.
Kate, I noticed that the map you showed of the two areas that where I guess you characterized as the western drainages, or western tributaries. I noticed the northern of those two, if I'm right, that's both where the dog park is, but also where the Carter Lake Canal comes in, the feeder canal. Is that right?
So the feeder canal is actually comes in right here. I don't know if can you see my mouse?
Yes. Okay.
Okay. So the feeder canal comes here. The problem is, I don't know if you've ever been on Boulder Reservoir, but it is very turbid, which I think is a good thing and can work in our favor with plant growth, because that light limitation might limit its growth, maybe. But so it's hard to tell how widely it is present, but it is somewhat rooted over here, but we were able to confirm that it is absolutely rooted in these areas. And then around this southern side, we mostly just saw floating fragments around Boulder Feeder Canal Inlet.
Have you communicated at all with Northern Water to see if they've identified it in Carter Lake?
We have been working with Northern Water closely on this because they do manage the reservoir as well. It is not present in Carter Lake. And I believe that so Colorado Parks and Wildlife, they generally do these annual aquatic nuisance species spot checks at all of their, I believe it's at all of their water bodies where they have watercraft inspection programs. So I would bet that they've been checking up there as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Looks like no other questions. Thanks, Kate.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Quality, Kate.
So continuing to roll here, lots of subjects we're talking about tonight, from UV curing of pipelines to weevils to flood mitigation plans. So the next item is an update and preview on an upcoming action item with the board. Starting in March on our Upper Goose Creek and 2 Mile flood mitigation plan. Chris Douglas, again, is the manager of our engineering work group, and he'll be giving you a quick preview of that. And just for orientation, one thing we want to try here, and this is based on board feedback we've received in the past, also affects the efficiency plan, around how long some of these plans take and how much process there is. It has been our practice when the board takes action on something to come in 1 month and do a deep dive and presentation, get the board's feedback, and then come back the following month and ask for a recommendation. And in talking to the board chair and vice chair over the last couple of months, what we want to try is presenting this in March. And if there are not a lot of questions or feedback, having that be a public hearing and potentially asking for approval on that evening. If there's a lot of feedback and a lot of stuff to follow up on, we probably pivot and have a second meeting. So that'll be coming up, and Chris, over to you.
Thank you, Joe. Again, Chris Douglas, I'm the Utilities Engineering Manager. I just really wanted to give, it's more of a primer for what's going on for next month when we do bring the Upper Goose Creek 2-mile mitigation plan to the board. As the board may remember, this is 2 of the 16 major drainages that are within the city in the stormwater system. And a little bit just the board actually saw this when we had the discussion back in January of 2021. But I'll say because of COVID issues and staffing issues, we've been delayed on that. And so really what we're doing is we're bringing some of the concepts that were previously discussed almost, I guess now it's over 2 years ago. So we really will do kind of a little bit of a start over again, but we're not starting from ground zero. But you know, the concept on a mitigation plan is really that cycle on a flood project. Is we do have the floodplain mapping, the mitigation plan, and then the design and construction. And really that floodplain mapping identifies the risks. The mitigation plan, we come and bring the alternatives, which we'll discuss next month. And then we go into the design and construction of that project. And then really as a bigger picture, as we look at this particular plan that we're bringing next month in these 2 drainages, it is also running it through and looking through the filter of the CFS that the board helped us pass last year. And how do these particular projects that will come up in that mitigation plan rank and relate to all of the other projects that we've got to do within the city? And so and a couple of other things, as we mentioned earlier this evening, we are doing our last community outreach meeting for this mitigation plan actually in the middle of this week. So we'll have some more information to be able to brief the board on that. And then just on that general side, not pulling up any maps, but generally these drainages are located. The Upper Goose Creek really starts from the area around Folsom and Edgewood and actually runs here to North Boulder Park. And then the 2-mile creek runs from about that 19th and Edgewood area as well, but then actually goes up to the north and west, and where Linden enters the city is really where that drainage starts. So we'll bring all of that to the board and definitely have a more robust discussion on that next week. And maybe the other thing on the primer there is Joe talked about new staff. One of our new project managers, Debbie Fisher, is leading that effort. So she's going to be the one doing the heavy lifting next month. So you have a chance to meet her as well.
Thanks, Chris. Quick about that.
I've got a quick one now. Chris, you mentioned that this project would be run through the CFS criteria. Does that suggest that all the ongoing or pending projects have been run through that?
And this one we get into is we talked about last year during the CIP process, you know, what are we putting through the CFS and what are we not putting through the CFS? Certainly there are some projects that are identified in the shorter term range in the CIP, but we weren't into the design process. That's why we decided to say, okay, let's get the mitigation plan done and look at it through the filter on the CFS to rank some of those, to rank these specific projects as well. So it was right on the edge, and we defaulted to going ahead and running it through the CFS.
And we haven't forgotten about the board's feedback last year about some of the existing projects and a desire to look at those as well. And as the team, I'll be talking about the upcoming agenda here shortly, but as we get into the budget process and the CIP, we'll be looking at a longer term view, hopefully, of how all those projects stack up with the prioritization formula. We're on the home stretch. It's a long list, but they're quick. So the next 2 items, Chris DeVille, our Deputy Director of Operations, will hit on wildfire resilience planning and the Chautauqua Sustainability and Resilience Planning.
Yes, thanks,
Hello,
Joe.
Chris.
The two Chris's right next to each other. So if you'll give me some grace, I'm going to refer to my notes. I am involved in both of these efforts, but just kind of minimally. So I'll try to do them justice. So yeah, I think both of these, it's just to tee up some awareness and some context as you're out and about in the community, and as we may have interest to revisit these later on more formally. But yeah, this first one, the name is the Wildland Fire Program and the teams that are affiliated with this. So on the heels of the tragic fires last year in particular, the city got together and formed this multi-departmental team to really work on this issue. Of course, there was work already happening over the years, but it was really to coordinate efforts around the managing the wild lands and the departments that own these lands, and how to address fire risk. So again, not to dismiss all the good efforts that have been going for a long time, but it was really just to come together and coordinate more deliberately. So obviously the City of Boulder Fire and Open Space are the key players in this work. And so utilities got brought in as a partner, really, because we own a lot of land. So there's strategies and actions that are built around what's defined as the National Cohesive Wildland Fire Management Strategy. Kind of a mouthful, but it's a nationwide guiding document in this space. And there's three main elements that kind of make up this framework. The first is resilient landscapes. The second is fire adapted communities. And the third is safe and effective wildfire response. So, this group and these efforts, they're not to duplicate or take away with the work that like the Office of Emergency Management is doing. That's a clearly defined role that's needed and important. But this is, again, really about managing the land itself. So what's happening is there was through decisions last year during the November ballot and election time, ballot measures 2A and 2B, there's $1.5 million of climate tax that is available to move this work forward. So this city team has been working with city leadership and others to make recommendations on how best to spend this money for this purpose. So this week, actually, at the city council meeting that's scheduled for Thursday, there's going to be an item where this topic is a component of it. So if you choose to listen in or join in, you can pull up the city council memo that speaks to this. But staff have made a recommendation on again how to spend this first allocation of $1.5 million. So it's part of what's being referred to as an adjustment to base action. There's typically 2 adjustment to bases each year that the city goes through formally. This is a special adjustment to base, so it's a little bit out of cycle of the normal process. I think the first one is typically in May. So the motivation is to get things off the ground and get going here. So some examples of how this funding would be used and it's being recommended is there's an important update that needs to happen in what's called the Community Wildfire Protection Plan, the CWPP. That's an acronym you might know of or may hear about. So the city is quite, the last time we did this CWPP has been it's been a number of years. So the city's due for an update, and that's I think slated at about $150,000 for this fairly comprehensive effort to coordinate that. There's recommendations on expanding some crews for fire and open space to help with this mitigation effort, the land management. And there's also some equipment needs that are being lifted up. So as there's interest, this could be a future RAB topic that we can revisit. So that was the motivation there, is just to let you know about that and our utilities involvement. So I'll just pause and see if there's any questions or comments.
I think in the update, there was a mention of how on the one hand, this is, the utilities has a lot of the land, but also there's a water quality benefit to this type of wildfire prevention and land planning and management.
Yes.
So
Absolutely,
Just a
Amy,
comment,
the source
not a
water
question.
protection aspect and water quality aspect, yeah. I mean, so forest thinning projects are an example of what would fit into this category. We've been pursuing, funding for those, alternatively, this effort and eventually some of these dollars that would come in year on year could be applied to those needs.
Could I add something?
Oh, yes, Megan.
Is that all right?
Mhm.
Just on your question, Megan Wilson with the Water Quality Group. I'm the Water Quality Manager. So we are finishing up a forest thinning project up in near Arapahoe Ranch, the sort of Middle Boulder Creek Basin. And then Kate Dunlap was leading that project with a lot of different partners. And then she's also working on one along the pipeline from Costler Reservoir to the treatment plant. So has secured some grant funding for that as well. I guess that might have been in the year in review. Just thought I'd share that.
It's very much related, yeah.
Kate is on the cross-departmental team as well, that Chris and I are too.
Happy to share more on that at the right time, so. All right, I'll go to the second one here. Yeah, so this one is just an update on some work that has occurred and is desired to continue to occur up in Chautauqua, so the Chautauqua community. So it's the topic for tonight. We're calling the sustainability and resilience collaboration work that the city has been engaged with the Colorado Chautauqua Association, the CCA. So Rab may recall seeing an email from Shelley Benford, I believe, who's the CEO of the Chautauqua Association. This was back in October. So it's been a little while, but we wanted just to acknowledge that and explain briefly some context around that if, as you might have interest. So Shelley sent an email and then attached a report. And so if you still have that grade, we could forward it back to you if you misplaced it. But so the report is basically, it was an outcome of some strategic work that happened over like really a 3-year time frame. I think 2019 is when it started and kind of wrapped up in 2021. It got interrupted with the pandemic, like a lot of things. But this report is dated 2022, and just want to explain what's in there. So I'll read verbatim here from the kind of an intro to the report. So the sustainability and resilience strategy is designed to address the environmental threats and vulnerabilities faced by the Colorado Chautauqua, a National Historic Landmark District. These threats include fire, heat, wind, and floods, all of which are damaging to Chautauqua's aging infrastructure and assets, including its buildings, roads, pathways, drainage swales, electrical system, cultural assets, and ecological landscape. So those are all the components that this work is trying to help develop strategies to eventually implement improvements and make the whole community more resilient and sustainable. So we've been participating in this work for a while. Some of the roles have changed. So I'm a newer member, as I mentioned, but there were 5 study groups that were assembled, and the main areas of focus were infrastructure, then energy, fire and heat was the third one, vegetation, and then governance. So utilities was part of the infrastructure group, as you might have guessed. And really the recommendations that are in the report for reference were primarily based around improving the stormwater drainage and infrastructure, because it's quite minimal up in Chautauqua. And as most know, the gradients are quite steep, and the cloud bursts and other impacts can be significant. So there's some good concepts, some good strategies, but where we're at now is that the city's really reassembling a city team to commit to continuing to work with Chautauqua and take these concepts and try to define them further, develop prioritization, prepare a budget, and really just see what we can do over time to make some improvements. There's no real firm commitments on the table with the specific projects and specific timing, but this is we're on the doorstep of entering into what they're terming kind of phase 2 of this work. So I'll kind of leave it there. And if there's any other questions, happy to talk about those.
it's an interesting sort of micro study and all of the things that the city does and how they kind of come together. Undergrounding electrical lines, pavement and transportation, stormwater and flood and ecosystems. And then Chautauqua is like one of the crown jewels of the city where people come to visit. And so there's that element as well. And then how do we all coordinate that work? And how do we prioritize that relative to other needs in the city?
And I imagine, how do you fund it from a capital investment perspective, and what kind of sources do you pull in?
Yeah.
Including, the Chautauqua Association and homeowners there.
There was a fairly detailed assessment of all the infrastructure. So, drinking water and sewer. There's a few things to do there too, but relatively minor on the scale of the stormwater needs.
More for Chris? Down to me for a couple of quick updates. Wanted to let you know, I think I mentioned it when I was describing the matters items, that we had a check-in with the Open Space Board in January related to the South Boulder Creek Flood Mitigation Project. And the purpose of the check-in with them was to review the conceptual environmental mitigation plan for the project. And the whole thing is complicated, but we did an annexation agreement with the University of Colorado. One of the elements of that agreement is that if we get all the approvals for the flood project, the university will transfer 119 acres of land that's designated for open space use to the city. That's meaningful to utilities because it's on the general site where the flood mitigation project will be, and it presents an opportunity to do the formal mitigation of our project impacts and get credit for that with the approving agencies. But the plan for that 119 acres goes beyond that. And so we were just kind of showing the board conceptually what some of the elements of that could look like. One of them, for those who are familiar with the property, there's a large levee surrounding CU's property. And under the plans that would get removed, and the floodplain would get reconnected, and there'd be the ability to create some nice environmental features out there. So that's the first of two items. Wanted to let you know about that. Happy to send the board the Open Space Board's meeting materials if you're interested. The second item relates to the upcoming budget process, and just really wanting to flag for the board that we're starting to see some escalation of our project costs, and bids are coming in a little bit higher than what we've estimated. It's all, there's an art to construction cost estimating, and we can be high or low in any given year. For the first part of the pandemic, where like the housing industry and timber prices went through the roof really quickly, we really weren't seeing that on our larger civil projects for the city of Boulder, but now we're starting to. And so that for several of us kind of has us thinking about rates and just reorganizing and retiming some projects. So wanted to give the board that advance heads up. It's not super great news, but probably not entirely unexpected either. That's it for staff for matters. Thanks for still being with us. It's been a while. So it was accumulating.
Yeah, sure.
Questions about either of my updates?
Just on that last note, Joe, with the cost increases, which I think everyone in our field is seeing that on projects, so that's no surprise.
Yep.
But that really speaks to the importance of coming up with an objective prioritization project. So you've got the AIM project on, I guess, the water side, more of a qualitative one on certain aspects, but then the CFS on the stormwater flood. Have you thought about trying to look at those comprehensively as it relates to the upcoming budgeting process for the CIP.
Yes. And the wastewater aim is in the mix as well in our planning this year.
This year.
So there will be that element going forward as well. And each of the three utilities is separate in terms of its funding and rates. And there are a lot of things that we have to look at, including the staffing and who we have available and what's realistic to move forward. So we are taking that into account across all three.
And just a quick follow-up, Joe, are you expecting, so it sounds like you're expecting the impacts to be on projects and when they happen, maybe some get delayed. Are you expecting additional rate increases that would be above and beyond what kind of has normally happened with the annual rate increase?
Correct me if I'm wrong, because we're working on this daily, but I would say not substantially. And some of it might even be slightly lower as we're getting staffed up and seeing when certain projects will really be ready to move forward. But they'll probably be slightly different than what we proposed last year. We always try to give the board and council a 3-year look ahead, and we generally stay pretty consistent. There may be some minor variation this year.
Yeah, Graham Clark, our financial manager, has been running lots of scenarios with Chris and his team and all the related groups. So too soon to tell tonight, but like Joe said, I think we're not anticipating anything massively drastic. But we also did previously forecast, some rates that would kind of sunset and then drop down to more traditional historical, normal levels, and that may or may not be the case anymore.
Is the Goose Creek 2-mile project still on track for major funding in 2024?
And that's one of the specific projects that we're looking at, is what's the right timing on that. This specifically, that Goose Creek project did not necessarily include all of the things that we'll be talking about as a part of the mitigation plan. So now we're with an assumption of moving forward with the mitigation plan. What's the right balance on looking at that entire Goose Creek drainage?
One scenario that we're looking at has that maybe changing by a year. And we also have to think about bonding. And once you bond for a project, there's a timeline that you have to get it done and you have to spend the money. So we have to be really honest with ourselves of what our capacity is.
Yeah, I was thinking about that because in looking at the year in review things, I looked at last year's CIP and I was reminded that the 2024 bond is $96 million, which is mostly South Boulder Creek, but then also Goose Creek 2-mile. I thought, holy cow, has the city ever done a $96 million bond in utilities? And so my immediate thought was, gosh, is there any way to sort of spread that out?
And that's really what we're looking at. Whereas the one that was envisioned in 2024 for Goose, that roughly 25 million, there was a lot of the storm piping and not so much of the flood channel work in there. And now with the mitigation plan, we have a concept on the flood channel, and it's what's the best way to serve the community with now having both of those things, but probably not being able to do, because it's even more on top of that envisioned CIP. So it's what's the right mix on that end? And certainly looking at, that's an example of the project trade-offs that we are continuing to look at within the team.
Can you clearly delineate components of that project so that it's like within the 3-year period, you would be able clearly to accomplish this and then follow with phase 2, 3?
And that's exactly what we're looking at, is just, even we were just talking the other day, and it's something like, okay, we've got let's talk about a project that is 25 million. What can we get for that project? And then let's look at phase 2, phase 3, several years down the road in the CIP. Does that, how we get through all of those different parts and pieces and dividing it up into what is a legitimate project that we can move forward. So picking numbers, it could be gee, maybe we do something for 20 million because we're at a good dividing point.
Right.
Yeah.
Or, you know, something more depending on what the best way is to move forward.
Maybe you could supplement the bond issuance with some other funding programs that would allow for a longer drawdown period.
Absolutely.
And Gordon, it's a good point, and for us, it's a balancing act because the CFS, the message from the community and really the feedback from the board and council was a theme of do more projects more quickly, and we feel that pressure and we intend to deliver on that as well. But with some of the really good news in Chris's area with staffing, we'll be able to do that. But again, we have to be honest with ourselves of what it will take for those people to get up to speed and be ready. So it's all an interesting analysis that we're going through on our own and sharing with the board soon. If there's not more on that.
Now I think we're to
transition
discussion of future schedule.
Future schedule. So as we signaled under matters, big thing coming up will be the Upper Goose Creek and 2 Mile flood mitigation project in March. And we'll give it a try as possibly a 1 meeting item, which will help us with that progress if we can do that. And if not, no harm, we'll come back with a second try. Have an information item on a public spaces update, which is the unsanctioned camping cleanup work that we do. I am not sure that timing is going to work because we're in a big discussion internally and with in April with council, so I may need to delay that one a little bit. We've also got a financial policy update around how we do things like reserves and bonds and things like that we may want to discuss with the board as an information item. And then April is always a big month. March will be Trisha's last on the board, and so we have a new member that comes on every year and swearing in of the new board member and the election of officers. And then I also have noted here a Netherland wastewater IGA that's probably going to move to another month. And then every April, we do an update with the board on our water supply situation, which it has been a cold and snowy winter. So we're relying on Kim to keep that up. Another couple of months. And then in May, we get into the normal budget process and kind of a 3-meeting series there. So there'll be lots for the board to work on in the next few months. And that's what I have for a big schedule.
All right. Anything else for the good of the order? Or is there a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Thank you.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. It sounds like.